What is up, everybody? Welcome to yet another episode of Father Dynasty. I'm your fatherly host, Chew, here in the manhole, here to talk a little fatherhood, fantasy football, and everything in between. And with me today is a very special guest. He is atop the pantheon of Chicago sports figures alongside Michael Jordan, Walter Payton, and Patrick Kane. Follow him on Twitter at John McGlynn75 and check him out as the host of the Commissioner Evaluation Podcast, Chicago's own John McGlynn. John, how are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. I might be above all those people, but maybe by that much, but it's close. So thanks for the introduction. I'm John McGlynn. You'll find me on a Twitter machine at John McGlynn75. That's my number from probably fourth grade Queen Universe Cobra football all the way through Brother Rice High School. And I didn't get it in college, but it is what it is. But that's been my favorite number for my whole life. So that's why it's 75 at the end of my son also has number 75 for his football uniforms. But I'm okay with that. You know, it's an honor that he takes my number and uses that as, what he thinks maybe is, what he wants to be or be better than me or, kind of like be a step above me, kind of stuff like that. So I'm super happy that, I'm honored that he wears the number I used to have anyway. So
I'm glad he's carrying on the number. And as you mentioned, being above the sports figures, I might have to go ahead and make the thumbnail a Mount Rushmore, so to speak, and put your heads on there. So
I got a pretty big head. I might take over most of the screen for these guys, but I got a big fat Irish head.
That's right. Oh man. Well, say with starting this off here, I think we'll go ahead with a keep, trade, cut. And are you ready?
I am ready.
Let's do it. So keep, trade, cut, of course, the fantasy football tool. Some people like it. Some people hate it. What we do on here, everyone gets their own unique topics, and rating these here, keep, which would be first or what you like best, and cut would be worst or what you don't want to get rid of. So the first one here is, it gets easier, right? You, of course, as you note on your Twitter profile, you have 4 kids, and hats off to you. That is a feat in and of itself. I don't know how you do it. But with these 3 things here, what gets easier as it is with more kids and getting into parenting? So would it be disciplining, patience, or teaching?
Disciplining definitely gets easier because I was always taught an adage by my grandpa when I was a young father myself, and he told me something that stuck in my head. That was, when you raise kids, that they're like trees. If you see a tree start to go this way, you put a rope on it, pull it back, and get it straight up. If you see it start to go that way, you put a rope on it, kind of go that way. You mold your kids the way you want to go, because like a tree, as you know, when it gets to be 10, 12, 14, 20 years old, and it's grown to the side, there's nothing you can do about it anymore. It's grown that way. You can't fix it anymore. So if you don't start from the ground up, as this tree's a sprout and a baby tree and a bigger tree, if you don't fix it along the way, it's too late. You're gonna live with that, what you did not do the rest of your life because of your whatever it may not be, motivation or lack of discipline or anything else like that. So that would be number one, discipline, or that would be my first. I'm keeping that one. I didn't write these down. What are the other ones?
The patience and then teaching.
Patience. I'm going to trade that because patience is not something that either you're born with or you're not. It's one of those things where some people are patient, some people are not. I've seen people who could put up with so much, like teachers and nurses and people like that, those professions. There's some people who are not made to do that, and some people are not very patient parents either. And there's no right way to be a parent. There's no handbook that says you got to follow step A to Z and that everything's going to work out right. So I'll trade that and I'll cut teaching, because teaching is something that every kid learns different. I have 4 kids, and you could see that if I was to sit down and teach them, say this, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do that. There's teaching. Every kid learns different. So teaching is a kind of a skill, or you have to really kind of get down to how everyone learns individually and kind of, teach them. And on top of that, as you grow older, what I've seen now, the things I've learned in history class and things I learned in math class and geometry, geometry's probably stay the same, but a lot of these subjects are completely different from when I grew up. Especially history books, the Common Core math, things like that come home now. I'm like, what is this? So I I'm the furthest thing from being a teacher whatsoever. I'm here to have a good time, show my kids how to enjoy life, all that kind of stuff. I'm not here to, to teach them I teach them how to be good young Catholics, how to, do unto others as they want people to do unto you, and don't judge anybody and just kind of live your life. And that's kind of all you can do. That's the best teaching I can give anybody.
Yeah, I think that's definitely one of the best, longest lasting lessons where, if that's what sticks, everything else just kind of falls into place. And yeah, I mean, very much like, what you're saying with, you said the Common Core math, that was one of the things that I have a couple of friends that are in teaching, and they just kind of offhand said to me one time, I don't know how math needs to change in that sense. Like, we already figured it out. Like, you add how you do and you subtract. But the fact that there's a whole new way of like, no, we need to completely reinvent this. It's going to make more sense, but it doesn't. It takes up way more paper. Now that all the parents can't help with homework because now they have to relearn how to do math apparently. So it's always making it more difficult for everybody.
It's funny because I'm in the trades and I can add 3 or 4 fractions in my head right now and add them up to, whatever you want to tell me. And my kids are still struggling with how multiplication tables. And I had them write down most every day. I had them write either their alphabet, print alphabet, and when they got old enough to do cursive, they did A to Z in regular and cursive every day. And they did the multiplication tables 1 to 1 all the way up to 12 times 12 every night of the week, So, and they just still with this Common Core, they just couldn't catch on like why multiplication tables are important. And they were instilled in my head growing up, and I'm great at math because of it. But
yeah, and that's another thing you said, by the way, with cursive. I didn't realize that either something that's not being taught anymore, or I guess it's just not being emphasized. Maybe
it's a shame. It's a shame because it says, being able to look at somebody's good handwriting. Everything's by because nobody writes letters anymore. There's no reason for it. Everything's emails and everything's, but I still get thank you letters, or we send out thank you letters for our kids, graduations. Or I get thank you letters for other people when they get married. Thanks for the gift, thanks this and that. And it's nice to see somebody's really nice handwriting. My daughter Margaret has fantastic handwriting, and it's beautiful to look at that. It's like an art form, and I write like a kindergartner still, so I'm jealous.
Oh yeah. Well, say in terms of jumping over to Chicago and their sports. So topic number 2, Windy City sports. Chicago, of course, has many prize sports teams there, but how would you rank these sports in Chicago? So we've got basketball, football, and hockey.
This is tough because I was a huge basketball fan when Michael Jordan was around all these days. It was right in my heyday. I was, probably 8th grade freshman year, high school years all the way through. Three championships in a row, and then a year off, and then 3 championships in a row. That'll never, ever, ever happen again in Chicago for any baseball, basketball, hockey, women's lacrosse. I don't care. It's not going to happen. It is what it is. It's hard for me to watch basketball now that I've been through that with Michael Jordan, probably the best athlete ever to play the game. And I'm going to say the Bulls are probably going to be a cut for me because I just can't watch basketball anymore because I'm not a big fan of the super teams and all that stuff like that. And every team back in the day, every team was so even. So the NBA was a joy to watch every day of my life. And it's just not the same anymore. There's no everything. If they breathe on you funny, it's a foul. People are taking days off every other day for rest days. It's like, come on, man. So I'm cutting the Bulls, by far. I've been a Blackhawks fan for a long time. We used to get free tickets all the time when nobody else wanted to go to the games. So we go a lot all through high school years, things like that. It would be tough. The Bears, when the McCaskies sell the team and they moved to Arlington Heights and have like a real situation, because I'm not sure if you ever went to a Bears game before, but it's terrible. Tailgating sucks. The stadium's terrible. It looks like shit from the. I don't want to swear on the show. It looks like crap from the outside. It's. I'm going to keep the Blackhawks, trade the Bears, and cut the Bulls. We'll go like that, right?
Fair enough. And in terms of it, that was interesting. I know when I was writing that question, I was like, well, I mean, it's kind of the perspective of like, is it the more recent? Is it just the entirety of your life, like the effect they've had on you, that kind of thing? Because like you mentioned with the Bulls, I mean, basketball as a whole, I think it's changed tremendously. And I mean, I'm a long-suffering Knicks fan. At least in my lifetime, there's been nothing of note to mention. And all my family's from upstate New York, so that's the only New York team I like. And apparently, I picked the worst one of the sports. So,
do you remember the Knicks when they were younger with Rodman and who else is on that team? It was Bill Lambier and Rodman and I don't know, Isaiah. I don't know why I can't remember his name right now. But it was the Bulls and them were they were the ultimate rivals because it was the bad. It was that was Detroit. I'm sorry, I'm thinking. But the Knicks also had Starks and Oakley and a bunch of other guys too. Yep. Every level of the playoffs was just a battle for all of. It was so good watching basketball back in the days. But I don't know if you remember any of those days with Oakley and all the awesome players on the Knicks. But those are great series. And as soon as Jordan was able to conquer his fears of kind of get over the hump with those two teams, everything it was smooth sailing after that.
Absolutely. And jumping over to the bonus question. So this one is actually movie related. So my wife and I guess now it's a little more removed now. We have a 4-year-old, and previously we moved into our current house. He basically just ran the basement. It was his. He had toys. It was his, and we accepted that. But as he got a little bit older, he's 4 now, so we've gradually kind of moved all of his stuff out of there so we can kind of reclaim it a little bit and have a place to hang out. So got the pool table, got the foosball table, all that kind of stuff. And my wife's idea was actually to put up movie posters up on the wall as something cool down there. We could only fit 7, so I got 4 and she got 3. But the 4 that I got to pick were Anchorman, Boondock Saints, Jaws, and Goldfinger. And the 3 that she picked were Pretty Woman, Harry Potter, I think it's the 5th one, and Mean Girls. So if you were to get 3 movie posters that you'd be able to put up, just any 3 that you want, they could be all about sports, not about sports, what would be your 3?
I cannot wait for this day because I have a 26-year-old living in my basement right now. My son just got home from college yesterday for spring break. He's in my basement right now. My daughters have their own rooms upstairs, and me and my wife shared a room. I'm doing a podcast in my garage with my TV and my beer stuff on the wall behind me, and I can't wait to actually have a basement with an office down there and do my own thing and kind of, whatever. That's a dream that's probably never going to happen. It's going to take an act of Congress to get my kids out of my house, so it's probably not going to happen. But if I had 3 movie posters, it would probably be, I'm going to say, I'm an old-fashioned black and white kind of movie. I don't know if you ever saw Cool Hand Luke. Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, that's one of my favorite ones. The Hustler with Paul Newman was another one of my favorite movies. And then I guess something a little more recent that I would say was probably like Dead Poet Society or something like that. One of those movies that Robin Williams really kind of into movies, or like The Departed. Something like that. That was a great movie too. I'm gonna go with one of those. So I'd be at the store going, I can only get 3. Damn. I don't. It would be one of those kind of right up that alley kind of thing. I like the good movies that are they're really kind of thinking movies. You have to sit down with popcorn and not get up and go to the bathroom or answer your phone. You got to watch the whole time. That kind of stuff.
And I like those because those definitely stand the test of time. I think those are ones that everybody can look back and really appreciate, not just kind of the flash in the pan. 5 years down the road, it's just kind of another movie that was big one time. So.
Yeah.
Well, so I know, as you just mentioned there, hopefully you get to reclaim that basement one of these years. But so jumping into the parenting piece of it, so was 4 kids always the plan?
No, I don't remember. I don't think there was ever a plan. Me and the wife had a son before we got married, so that's just something that happens. It is what it is. And then we had a second son on the way that ended up being like a week before he was born. He unfortunately was a stillborn, so it was kind of tough to get through that for a while, and then we had a bunch of ectopic pregnancies and like tubal pregnancies and stuff. It was kind of hard to get through all this stuff like that with my wife. I felt terrible for her. And then we had another boy. So we had Steven, who's 26 now, Johnny, who's 22. And then we had our stillborn in between both of those guys. And then we had to go when my wife had she had an ectopic and a tubal pregnancy between there. So they said she can't have kids anymore because she only has tubes on one side and ovary on the other. So we had to go do in vitro the whole thing. So she was getting shots every night. And I felt so bad. I was giving her 3 shots. She had bruises all over her back and her butt and everything else like that. It was terrible. And finally we had our first daughter, Margaret, which is, the joy of my life, Maggie, so it's, I was so happy to have a girl because I had brothers, we had a couple girl cousins, but for the most part, it was just, I didn't really grow up with a girl influence in my life besides my mom. So having a daughter was really kind of special to me, you know. And then they said, okay, we had to do all that stuff. And then like 5 months later, all of a sudden my wife's throwing up in the morning and all the other stuff like that. And they're like, what's going on? She's like, I don't know. I feel like I'm pregnant. Like, well, you can't be pregnant. You don't have it. Well, the doctors messed up the paperwork and she had a tumor and ovary on one side and nothing on the other side. So we did the in vitro for nothing that whole time. And it ended up being our miracle girl, Kathleen Rose. You know, that's Katie is our fourth one. And she's my little honey badger. She's the toughest little snake on, you know, we call her a honey badger because no matter what sport she plays, she's the smallest person on the gym and she plays center and she beats everybody up all the time, getting rebounds and stuff. She plays lacrosse. She played softball and all the other sports like that. And she's had heart surgery already. She's had, surgery for her. She's had surgery on her. She had what's called a Merkel's diverticulum, which is like a pocket. I was changing diapers. My wife worked second shift. I worked first shift after work, came home to all four kids for like 11 years, you know. And I was changing diapers and all of a sudden I'd open a diaper and it would be full of blood, like just full of blood. It scared the hell out of me. Yeah. We went to the doctor and they said it was, that they were all different things from, you know, she ate something funny to this and that. But after it happened, like every 3 or 4 months, like for about, you know, a year and a half straight, we were kind of like, hey man, something's going on here. It's not just some kind of stomach virus, something like. So they found out they had to cut a part of her intestine out. It would grow up, it would fill with blood, and then finally explode. But it was very, very, very scary when you open up a diaper and it's full of blood, like, you know, every couple months. So it was she survived that, and then she went on a tubing accident, broke her back.
Ooh.
So sure. She went face first into the water, and she did like a scorpion thing, and her backbone went forward and to the right. So they had, you know, she didn't feel her legs for a little bit while she was in the water. You know, she was able to walk after that, but she had to have surgery to put her backbone straight again and pull it back. And then there was a whole arc thing. Mm-hmm. And she recovered from that to the point now where she came back, went back to lacrosse, and earned a full scholarship to college for a goalie for a lacrosse team because she's that persistent, that, you know, that awesome. You know, like you can't teach kids things to how to be awesome. And my daughter Katie is awesome. So that's why the teaching thing is probably my cut, you know, in the one thing, because you just can't teach size, you can't teach strength, you can't teach determination. Yeah, and then she has it all. So
well, I would say it's pretty clear that you and your wife did pretty damn well, because it sounds like you raised 4 great kids, and it sounds like they're reminding you every day that how great of a job y'all did. So
we had to make sacrifices. My wife works at Cook County Jail, you know, and I was an electrician my whole life. She had to work second shift or midnight shift. Well, I worked first shift. So I'd get up at 4:45 in the morning, get my kids packed, drop them off the babysitter, you know, and then she'd get off the midnight shift at 7, come home, pick them up, get them dressed, put them up, bring them to school. And then she'd take a nap for a couple hours, pick them up from school, get them lunch, you know, that kind of stuff. And I'd drop back off the babysitter, and I'd come home from work and I'd pick them up. And then I'd do the same thing. You know, she'd make food in a crock pot and go to work. And I'd take what's in a crock pot, make some kind of rice or vegetables on the side. And then I'd feed them a little bit, do some homework, and then I have to drop them off to the babysitters again to be the head coach of football or head coach of baseball or head coach of t-ball or whatever the thing was. And then I'd get done coaching, pick up the equipment, go get the kids from the babysitter, come back, finish their homework, you know, feed them again, give them their bottles, whatever age that they were. And then, give them baths before bedtime. And then it would just, you know, keep going on every day. There was not a minute. So it's, I'm finally starting to breathe a little bit as a parent. Like, you know, like my wife's on day shift now. I'm on day shift. The kids are kind of self-sufficient now. So it's, we're not that we weren't enjoying life before, but it was such a rat race every day of our life that we're finally being able to breathe right now.
Yeah, you guys certainly just put your head down and just stuck to it. But yeah, glad to hear that. Sounds like, you know, picking your heads up and, you know, maybe getting like you're saying, you know, not having a staggered schedule is maybe getting to see each other more and kind of, you know, do more things and have a little more normalcy, whatever that means.
The funny thing is we had the same shift. Like, we're home all the time, and it's like we have a little more arguments now than we did before when we didn't see each other. You know.
Well, yeah, I would say, yeah, you fall into that routine, and then it's just like, this is different now. How do we figure this out?
Hey, it's my side of the couch. Get out of here. You know?
Oh man. Well, I think you've probably highlighted a couple of these, but what would you say is the most challenging and then the most rewarding thing about parenting?
The most challenging thing about parenting is being on the same page. That's 1,000% probably the number one answer from everybody when they ask about this is my wife wants to give my daughters a credit card to go buy Starbucks every day, whatever they want. We give my sons this, go do that, to make them super happy. And I'm kind of like, hey guys, you got to be responsible. You have to save money. You got to do this. You spirit wear. My wife says spirit wear. Every time they join a club, she's got to buy the jacket, the hat, the hoodie, the this, that. They got to wear the shorts, the pants, the this, and everything. And I'm like, they're going to be on this team for 6 months. You don't need to buy anything. Buy something from the grammar school, buy something from high school. Help out in the fundraisers and stuff like that. But the money we spent on like things that we don't need in this house, I think financially. I'm not going to say it's a men thing because I know a lot of men who are really, really like, I guess, how do you call it? Not very focused on their budget either. Not very disciplined. So I'm not going to say it's a man or a woman thing by any means whatsoever, but it's very hard to be on the same page financially or, what just parenting in general, being on the same page is very hard.
Yeah, I that feels like something where, if it's being able to align philosophies, I mean, even if it's like different mindsets, it's like if at the end of the day, like there's maybe some sticking points where it's just like you can't come together, that I'm sure it keeps popping up, every so often with those sorts of decisions that, I'm sure certainly with 4 kids, a lot of the same things I'm sure come up year over year, moment over moment, where it's just like, every kid's different, but a lot of things might be very similar.
Yes,
what happens, so.
You try to do the best you can for all 4 of them, but they all like to point out when you did something you took that one in the movie, so you bought this one then, or that they got a new bike, or whatever. It's like, come on, man, like it never ends, that kind of stuff. But we do the best we can. Like, we're trying to pay for our kids' college, so when they graduate, only 2 of them are going to school, and one of them's got a full scholarship. Mine is just room and board kind of thing, But the other one went to University of Wisconsin Whitewater. He's like $20,000 a year, which is considered pretty much cheap for nowadays for college. So we're just trying to get all 4 of our kids, out of the house debt free when they get a chance to. But I don't think they're going to be debt free living in my house till they're 70 years old anyway. So
no, you got to get enough out so you can get that basement. I'm telling you, whatever it takes.
I'm trying.
Oh man. Well, say in terms of, you've got everything going on. I know you got the day shift aligning with your wife and everything, but how do you balance, say, work, family, podcasting, creating any content, anything like that? How do you attempt to find any sort of balance with that?
Well, the weird thing about me is also, I guess now that my wife's finally on a day shift, I just got a job probably 4 or 5 years ago where I work rotating 12-hour shifts. I work 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. for 4 days. I'm off 4 days, and I work 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. for 4 days. So it's, and then sometimes I got to work vacation coverage, which means I'm working 6 days, 12-hour days or 6 12-hour nights in a row. So, and I have weekends off for a month and then weekends on for a month. And I missed this year. I missed 4th of July. I missed Memorial Day. I missed Easter. I missed Thanksgiving. I missed Christmas and New Year's because I had to work. My schedule just kind of lined up where all the moons were aligned where they didn't want me to take any holidays this year. So, you make some extra money, kind of stuff like that. But it's when I do have the free time, we just came back from Tampa Bay. My daughter had something going, like an event in Tampa Bay. So me and the wife said, hey, I'm off all 4 days. She took a couple vacation days, dropped the kids off at their function. We turned it into a 4-day bar crawl, went here and there, tried restaurants, went up and down Tampa Bay strips, made the best of it, got a hotel pool. We went and seen a hockey game in Tampa. We went to see the Tampa Bay Lightning. We went to Busch Gardens. We kind of did the whole thing. We've been to 43 states together. So with all of our kids. So we've seen America through all these trips and stuff like that. It's been nice, but you got to do it when you can.
That's awesome. I will say, so of those 43 states, I live in Virginia. Have you been to Virginia? And if you have, what are your thoughts?
My daughter just went. She really wanted to go to Ferrum College, and I think is that West Virginia or Virginia?
I think that's West Virginia.
We went to West Virginia. Well, she and my wife went to West Virginia, and my wife and her came back and said that was the most beautiful place I've ever seen. Now, I did not. We went to other parts of Virginia, but not where Ferrum College was in the mountains. In West Virginia, but it's the pictures I saw and the pictures from the stadium, the pictures, all that stuff. It looked absolutely fantastic. My favorite place in America is probably going down from Utah to Wyoming, and that Bryce Canyon by the all the things in Utah are. It's like every time you look up, it's like a picture, like somebody painted a pastel picture. The sunrise, the sunsets, the clouds, the different colors of the sky. All the orange and green and things like that are inside the mountains. Every time you turn your head, it's just a beautiful. It's like a painting. It's so awesome there.
I'll say I've had a couple of buddies who, some of them, doing like snowboarding and skiing, and some of them just like traveling, heading out that direction of like going out to Colorado, going out to Utah, going out to I think Arizona, some of Montana, I want to say. And they specifically mentioned like, yeah, Utah is a pretty tremendous place, pretty picturesque.
Inspiration Point at Bryce Canyon in Utah is absolutely probably my favorite place on earth to look at. It was I didn't want to move. It's one of those places you go look at and you just can't, your eyes just can't get enough of it. It's like it was like a buffet for your eyes kind of thing like that. It was nothing you could do. It was absolutely awesome. And we've been through most of California. We've been through a lot of Texas. We went our last trip, well, 3 trips ago. We went around the whole state of Colorado. So we went from Illinois, started at Field of Dreams, Buddy Holly's crash site, went to Mount Rushmore, all that stuff like that. Kept going around all the way to to Utah, to Wyoming, went to see Vegas, the Hoover Dam, all that kind of stuff. St. Louis, the Arch. We made the whole trip of it, but we've never been to Colorado. It's one of the 7 states we haven't been to yet.
Okay, and just in terms of, I guess, what's on the horizon right now, do you have the next, I guess, place planned that you haven't been to yet, or is that TBD?
No, it's TBD because my daughter's, when she does all these things we did are all because of sports, sports things like that. Like the last time we went on a trip, it was my daughter had a tournament up in Upper Michigan. So we drove to Upper Michigan, and then we had like 5 days left. So we went to Niagara Falls in Canada, came back down went to the first wing place in America, New York, went and seen Times Square, went and saw all the way down to Washington, D.C., went to Gettysburg, went to all that stuff like that. So
nice.
All these tournaments, all these places we go to are all depending on where my daughter's at. Now she's going to college. A lot of her games are going to be flying, to different places, some driving. So we're crossing our fingers that she's got a game in Colorado, so we can go see Colorado as a family, that kind of stuff too, making a trip. But I'm not sure she'll be able to get off the plane and hang out with us. She'll probably have to jump back on and fly back. But North and South Carolina, Alaska, Hawaii, North Dakota, Washington, and Vermont. We didn't do Vermont. We went all the way up to Maine and all the way down to New York from Canada, but we never did Vermont.
Gotcha.
And I think that might be the only 7. I can't remember if that was in Colorado. So those are the ones we haven't seen yet. So we're kind of hoping for trips, lacrosse trips there.
Awesome. I'd say I got my fingers crossed, and very, very much looking forward to, I think, people that get the chance to travel, and that's a very creative way to do it of, you're going to be doing those trips anyway. And I feel like, especially with sports, as it gets deeper and deeper, you're going to be traveling further and further. So I think that's a pretty awesome way to be able to, as a family, you guys get a chance to actually do something on top of, going for the sport itself.
Yeah, it's relatively cheap because we had 2 Ford Flexes in a row. We had 250,000 miles on the one and 260 something on the other one. They drove. Cars last forever. We took care of them. I change oil every 3,000 miles, that kind of stuff. Put new tires on there when they need to be done. But it's driving is the best because you drive somewhere. Every trip we went on, all these states, we never had anything planned. We kind of had we use a road trippers map to kind of look at all the destinations. We just drove and drove and drove, and it's like, you know what, we're tired. It's 38 miles to the nearest hotel. Let's go. We just stopped and went. We never had an agenda on any of our trips. The trick is, you got to find a hotel with a pool that's open late at night. So we'll start off in the morning. You want to find a place with a breakfast buffet, like a continental breakfast, and then with a late checkout. So in case you do have a rough day, or you're sleeping a little bit, or you're tired, or somebody's sick or something like that, you get a late checkout, and then that saves you money for breakfast for six people, and then you get to run around all day long. And then make sure it's got a pool, because at night when you get back, everybody's tired. You just want to jump in the pool. We get $5 pizzas from Little Caesars or something like that. Jump in the pool, grab a case of beer, throw it in the cooler, pops and water for the kids, kind of stuff like that. And just make it relax, get your feet wet, sit in the hot tub for a little bit, kind of chill, get a nice sleep in the bed. Half the time I end up sleeping on the floor because there's only 2 twin beds, but I don't care. That's what dads do, So that's the trick to it all.
Well, man, I was going to say, I would say you're a man with a plan, but the plan is to have no plan, and I love it.
That's it. My whole life is that kind of impromptu stuff.
Love to hear it. Well, I'll say, in terms of a plan, what did you think of jumping over to the sports side again, the Bears plan, so the Bears 2022 season? What did you think about that?
I like that they were tearing it down. I like that they were kind of saying, you know what, as being in fantasy football or being in any kind of sports kind of thing, you never want to be in the middle anywhere. You're drafting, you're not getting a good draft pick. I want to thank Lovie Smith for winning that game, the last game of the season, and getting the Bears the 101, which gave them so much leverage. Look at what they got. They got DJ Moore, who was probably worth more than the 101, like in reality in this year's draft anyway. And he got, and you got I know it's terrible for you, but him and Chris Godwin are like my two favorite receivers in the NFL. So that's I've always been I think a lot of people are DJ Moore fans because of his talent. But sorry, I know it is what it is. But thanks for giving us to him. But
it costs what it costs.
Right, and then to get those picks and all stuff like that. How do you feel about that? I mean, I don't want to switch tables here, but how do you feel about that trade?
When I first saw it, because I know with the Panthers' new owner Tepper, now that he got, the coach that he fully got to pick, the coach got to pick his staff, which I think the Panthers have built out one of the best coaching staff I've ever seen. But I knew that Tepper would go for it at some point, but I didn't know if it actually was going to be enough to make Chicago bite. But when I saw that they got the first pick, the first update I saw was that they traded for it, and I immediately, was tweeting like, I was psyched about it. And then I saw the follow-up tweet that was saying that it included DJ Moore. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Because that was like you get rid of McCaffrey already, which I understood. It was a big contract and everything. But I was like, I know you're going to set it up to get this quarterback, but that was before they got all these free agents. And I was just looking at it as like, I don't care if you have cap room. Like, you just let DJ Moore go on top of those first and the second and everything. So it was initially disappointing to see, but I like a lot of what they've done thus far, getting Adam Thielen, DJ Chark, filling out a lot more of the roster that I think it still stings, but it stings a little bit less. But I mean, getting it first, it costs what it costs. I know you got to pay up for it. So
yeah, 101 is expensive. I just thought maybe this year was not the year to trade up for a 101. I don't think there's anybody that's special at quarterback. But
yeah,
that what we think and what the NFL knows is two different stories. So I get it, as far as that goes. But I wanted the Bears to like do a little bit. I was under the kind of like, hey man, we should probably get rid of Justin Fields too. Just say. Trade Justin Fields away, trade the 101 pick away, just start from bone dry scratch, because I'm not really sure that Justin Fields is really the answer yet. I mean, I think we know that he's got great rushing ability, and I thought in college we saw that he was a good quarterback, but he's never going to have receivers of that caliber in the NFL. I mean, his team was a cheat code in college. He could have thrown the ball blindfolded and his receivers would have caught it. Anybody can look good with great receivers like that, but I'm not sure who's ever going to have the talent around him like he did in college. So he's a talented guy, and everybody, what makes what? The receivers make the quarterback, and the quarterback makes the receivers. If that's the case, if he's that good of a quarterback, he should have made the receivers he had better this year. I don't care if they're, fourth or fifth. Like we saw Daniel Jones throw in a playoff game to considerably worse receivers than what the Bears had. He threw for 300 yards in a playoff game with nobody's. So why couldn't Justin Fields do it? And he played the Vikings twice this year and didn't do crap, both games. And everybody walked over the Vikings in the NFL this year. So I'm kind of a little bit scared on what's going to happen with Justin Fields, because if he starts running the ball again, he gets hurt and he's out this season. At the end of this year, they have to sign him to the fifth-year option. Do they know they want him for the fifth year if he doesn't produce this year? Like, I'm kind of scared about that. Now that they surround him with a little bit of talent, and hopefully they get somebody, I hope they get offensive lineman in the draft to give Justin Fields some time. I've just seen Justin Fields with time make some bad plays too, which kind of also scares me, but I trust what's going on here. It just seems to be going the right way. I think they made a big splash the first couple of days, and it's kind of like, okay, you got some linebackers and you traded for a receiver, and what's next kind of thing. Like you got a decent running back. You got you let one running back go that I thought was a pretty good running back. Not great, but I'm not sure that there's much of a difference between what they got and what they gave, what they let go. So I was excited. I'm excited to see the progress, but I think it's going to be a couple more years before. I just feel like they should have done a little bit more peeling of the onion before they decided to start playing. Let's go for it all again, kind of thing.
Yeah, and I'll only mention my bias briefly, and I am hoping that Khalil Herbert. I went to Virginia Tech, so I'm hoping that he does get his full chance to shine. But when I look at it, I'm like, I want him to get that, but I also, knowing what Fields has done, they're going to be leading the league in rushing attempts between Fields and other running backs and that sort of thing. So I do really hope that, they continue to add to those weapons and that support around Fields, just to, if anything, give the absolute best shot, no questions asked. Fields has it or he doesn't, and I guess go from there. But
I really hope what they're doing are the right moves, and I really hope that they have. I'm sure they have a plan. I mean, they're the NFL; they have a plan. But I, as a Chicago fan, I can tell you that everybody here is very, very excited for Khalil Herbert. So, and Deonta Foreman was kind of I'm the guy. I kind of liked Montgomery a little better than Deonta Foreman. So that's just me, though. So
yeah. So you talked about it a little bit here, but so what would be your ideal blueprint for the rest of the off season for the Bears? We got it could be some more signings, could be some more trades. Obviously, we have the draft coming up. What would be, whether it be specific people you want them to get, or just kind of a general? We need to add here, we need to add there.
I mean, Darnell Mooney's a speed guy, and Claypool. I don't really know what to expect from Claypool. I know what to expect from DJ Moore, but I kind of still selfishly want DJ Moore to play the slot, and not be on the outside, because I think he's better used that way. I think he's a fantastic, probably the best number 2 wide receiver in the NFL. If you could put a number 1 next to him, I think he'd be he would be fantastic. I mean, that's where he should be, is a great number 2 besides a great number 1 somewhere. I'm not sure the Bears are going to be able to get a number 1 that's better than DJ Moore this year. So that's probably not going to happen. I just think that what they need to do is they need to do offensive line. Start if Fields is the answer, then protect him. Get offensive line with the first round pick. The problem is they don't have another pick till pick 50. So it's not like they traded away their 201 for Chase Claypool, which would have been a great pick. Another great offensive lineman, maybe a receiver that fell on day, the second and day 2. So that was kind of we're all kind of the more and more that stings more and more as the draft keeps coming closer and closer. But it's really a first 131 now, because the Dolphins don't have a pick. So to trade a first round pick for Chase Claypool was kind of, it does sting a little bit. They drafted Velus Jones, and a couple years ago they got what's his name? Equanimous St. Brown, a couple guys like that. They got Cole Kmet, and they get Robert Tonyan for red zone guys. They're adding pieces to this offense. And Travis Homer is somebody that is underrated too, I think, in the Bears backfield. Tristan Ebner is okay, but I want them to go offensive linemen and then start and get defensive linemen also. People to man the box, Just we need to get defensive ends, defensive tackles. You got some good linebackers now, maybe a little bit overrated linebackers, possibly more athletic guys than studs, kind of thing. But I want the box on both sides of the ball to be really upgraded in this draft. And it's tough when you don't have picks. They have 6 picks after pick 50, but what are you really getting after pick 50? It's kind of people are swinging missing their first round picks, let alone 3rd and 4th round picks. So.
Yeah, and we'll see. I mean, with a lot of those earlier picks, is this the time where they, strategically are kind of trading down a couple of times to get maybe more picks that if they have those people kind of, pointed out that they can still get them, or just trading back just for the sake of trading back just to get more people, even if they're not really maybe a good scheme fit or that sort of thing. So, I think it helps that they've addressed enough things, with trades and with signings, filling some holes, but as we know in the NFL, it doesn't matter how the offseason looks. Once they make it to week 1 and once injuries start stacking up, that depth is tremendously important. So hopefully they can fill that in there.
It feels like it's a good year to need offensive linemen, defensive linemen too, because it's kind of a bad year for quarterbacks, a bad year for wide receivers, not a great year for running backs, and everybody seems to be kind of oversized this draft too, or undersized this draft too. So I think the Bears kind of land in a good spot where people are going to take their needs, and they're going to have some guys fall to them. So I'm kind of happy that situation the Bears are in right now.
Yeah. The final question I have for you here, and actually not Bears related, but content creation related. So, what would be your number 1 thing not to do for those new fantasy content creators out there? So something maybe you've learned that's kind of something you learn to stay away from, or that sort of thing.
Don't force your opinions down somebody's throat. You be open about here's the thing. Nobody knows anything. We all think something. I just told you about 10 things that are probably going to be completely wrong that I just spouted off on this podcast right now. And I'm okay with that, because that's what I think. And I don't listen to the echo chamber on Twitter. Don't listen to your favorite writer because you think everything he's going to say is going to be right. Do the math, kind of figure stuff out yourself. And if that's what you think, write about it or talk about it or express your feelings. But it's not an absolute. It's an opinion. We all have opinions here. Like, we all have our beliefs, and some people have said, this is what's going to happen. I know it. And it came down. It was 180 degrees from what we thought was going to happen. And some people say there's no way that could possibly happen. The money situation, the years, the contract, this guy hates this coach. And then it happened, that kind of stuff. So don't be absolute about anything. Just tell you how you feel, whether it be a written form or a podcast form or any kind of form whatsoever. Don't ever force your opinions on somebody's throat is my biggest kind of I guess what I would say is the biggest useful thing that I learned so far.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. I think when people getting into it and they maybe think they have to find like what's the way that my voice can be the loudest kind of thing. It's like it doesn't have to necessarily be the loudest, but if it's a quiet voice that kind of over time builds and snowballs into more people listening, more people appreciating what you do, what you say, and what you kind of bring to the table. Again, yeah, whether it's right or not, whether it's 50-50 in terms of it's right 50% of the time, wrong the other 50. I think a lot of that stuff, for people that don't create content, they can have a lot of the same opinions, and it's really just as you learn, it kind of creates a better process and a better way to think of things, fantasy football related or any other sport. So I love that answer.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And so final thing here, John. So the guest always gets the last word, and this is entirely up to you. A shout out, a plug for anything you got going on, a quote that you have on your mind, a cheers, and one that has not been heavily utilized, but entirely up to you, an insult if you want to throw one someone's way.
I just, here's the thing is I see these young kids nowadays getting into fantasy football world, and like my kids, they know how to use Google Sheets, and they know how to use Word, and they know how to use all this. Now there's things you could just say a topic and computers will write stuff for you, kind of thing like that. Me growing up, I went to high school when we still had typewriters, so I am the furthest thing from a computer person whatsoever. And I feel like I'm getting buried in this site every day with 100 or 1,000 new content creators coming up that can use Google Sheets. They could, what's the other one? Google Sheets and Excel. They can make these spreadsheets and just kind of, this guy had for the last 3 years, he's averaging 3.8 and 2.7. And, you throw the ball 37 yards on an inch, they come up with these stats like this. And I have to do tons of research. And when I'm starting to get into Google Sheets now, when I do this kind of stuff, it takes me like 7 hours to do something that would take somebody else like an hour, like 10 minutes to do probably. But the problem is I'm doing it. It's something I've always wanted to do. If this is what you wanted to do, if this is what you're doing, you're never too old to start. You're never too young to start. I mean, look at Hutchinson Brown, who started when he was 13 years old. He's on his own show. He's on everybody else's podcast all the time. If this is what you want to do, if you want to do a gardening show, if you want to do a automotive show, if you want to do fantasy football stuff, do what makes you happy. Don't do what makes you the most money or what's the fastest way to relevance or something the most people in or where you feel the most comfortable. Do what makes you happy. That's the biggest thing I have now. I'm 48 years old now, and fantasy football has made me happy since I've been probably, excuse me. Fantasy football has made me happy as someone who watched football before I started playing since fourth grade, watched my kids play football, coached my kids play football, and I can't wait to coach my own grandkids or at least watch them play, kind of stuff like that. Football and fantasy football is what makes me happy, and that's what I love doing. And other people do things to make money. People do things that I can make $100. I can make. It's not always about like what can I get for me? What can I do for you? Life's too short for that, man. I go to work every day. I work minimum 48 hours a week, minimum. Usually it's 72 hours a week, and plus an hour and a half drive to work each way, that kind of stuff. I want to be happy when I'm not working, and this makes me happy. So being on a show like this, Father Dynasty, where I get to just talk about how to be a good dad, how what I like about football, things like this. This is what makes me happy. And Chu, I can't thank you enough for having me on the show today, because it meant a really lot for me to be asked, first of all, and second of all, to kind of express my feelings like this. And so people who aren't really sure their direction can kind of maybe listen to something I said when I babbled about and maybe get some advice that hits them a little bit.
John, I could not agree more. I sincerely, appreciate those kind of words. And, much like you're saying, a lot of people that are in this space, it's because they're choosing to be in it. It's, not to say it can't be a grind. It often, depending on how much you want it to be one. But yeah, if you're not enjoying what you're doing, then it's going to wear you down pretty quick. So I love to hear that. And I mean, you're certainly someone who's out there grinding, and, appreciate everything that you do. So thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it. And you have a good one up there in Chicago.
I will do that. You can find me on a Twitter machine, John McGlynn 75. I do my commissioner evaluation show. I'm with Nick Scripp, who's my neighbor, my friend, my drinking partner. I'm with him on his P2W fantasy show, or his network. And I'm with Fantasy Pros, Dynasty Pros, with Bob Miller and all the good guys over there. I'm going to start spitting out a little more content. I just joined both of those as a actual part of the team there. So look forward to seeing all you guys at the expo. Looking forward to seeing all you guys on Twitter. Looking forward to watching more shows, and keep grinding, guys. I absolutely love it.
Appreciate it, John. You have a good one.
You too.